Apparently, we're getting a remake of the Dragon Ball Super anime. Maybe? Let's talk about it. Hey guys, just a heads up, I'm not going to be doing much editing for this video. This is not a scripted video. I just wanted to share some thoughts about a rumor that is going around in the Dragon Ball fandom right now. In case you're not aware, there's a big Dragon Ball event coming up in Japan on January 25th. It's called the Genkidamatsuri. So this is a pun, or well, I guess you would say it's a portmanteau. So it's two words smashed together. Genkidama, the spirit bomb, and Matsuri, which means festival in Japan, or well, in Japanese. And so this event is being described as the climax of the 40th year anniversary celebration, right? Because 1984 was when the Dragon Ball manga got started. So we've been celebrating the 40th anniversary this past year. And then in October, I think that's when the manga got started. Anyway, the event in January is the big climax event. And at that event, they're going to announce two new undertakings. Now, in English, the word being used is project. I guess that's fine. They don't actually use the word proyecto, but basically the translation, yeah, I think it's fine. You know, there are two new undertakings, two new things. There's some new developments coming in Dragon Ball about the future of Dragon Ball. And they're going to be announcing also a new video game, it seems. I don't keep track of the video game, so I don't really care too much about that. But apparently they're announcing two new projects. Now that doesn't necessarily mean that they're announcing like one new movie and a new anime. It could be something completely new, like Dragon Ball AI Adventure. God, no. I hope not. I hope not. But there's no guarantee that it's an anime thing. Although at the one stage where, well, one event, one, main stage, I believe, with Masako Nozawa, the voice actress of Goku, they're going to be announcing one of these projects. So it seems likely that that one is going to be, an anime or movie or something related to Masako Nozawa, because she's going to be there. She's the one that does the voice for Goku. So it makes sense that that's not a manga thing, but rather some animated project. And well, we don't know the details, right? But I saw one video that definitely, absolutely confirms that, well, we're getting a remake of the Dragon Ball Super anime. And, well, I saw recently Geekdom, he did a live stream where he talks about possibilities. Apparently he knows the leaked information, but he doesn't want to confirm it because, he doesn't want to deal with all the complaints that he's going to get from people. So apparently the information has been leaked. And so that information says that it's a remake of Dragon Ball Super. So whether this is true or not, obviously I don't know. I don't have these connections to Toei and whatever, and Akio Yoku and all these people, behind the scenes that, pull the strings, right? So I'm just going to talk about what we've heard, what the speculation is, and my thoughts on that. So first of all, remake of Dragon Ball Super. This... Oh my god, this seems like horrible. Like, why would they do this? Why would they bother to do this with such a recent product? So the justification, I guess, could be that, yeah, the animation in Dragon Ball Super was problematic. And so it warrants a remake. Really? Really? That's the justification? That alone? They actually did fix some of the animation for the Blu-ray. I mean, this alone does not seem like it would be justification enough to completely remake everything in Dragon Ball Super. You have to think about how much money it would cost to do that. There has to be another reason to justify that expense. And so I've been thinking about this. Why would they choose to do this? Now, there could be some stuff behind the scenes going on related to rights. Just for example, I was watching a video in which Pekin was talking. So Pekin, in case you're not aware, he is this guy in Japan who is known for having the biggest Dragon Ball merch collection. I believe he's been in the fandom since the very beginning. So he's an older gentleman, probably in his 50s, I'm guessing. So he probably watched Dragon Ball from the very beginning. He was reading the manga, I assume. Anyway, he has a massive collection. I've seen a bunch of videos where he takes us around his house and all that. The point is that he knows a lot about Dragon Ball. And he said something like the Shonen Jump store. Okay, so let me explain. There are Shonen Jump stores in Japan, and they sell merch of the manga that is published in Shonen Jump. However, recently in November of 2025, we got a Dragon Ball store that opened up in Tokyo Station. So what he was explaining is that the Shonen Jump store has the rights to the manga. In other words, they can produce merch based on what was in the manga. However, the Dragon Ball store has the rights to produce the merch that was related to the anime. They have those rights. Now, I'm just going off memory here, but he said basically something to that effect. In other words, you're not going to see the same exact merch at both places. You're going to get some stuff that Shonen Jump sells that you're not going to see in the Dragon Ball store and vice versa because they don't share the exact same rights. So it's possible that something like this might be going on with the anime. Maybe Akio Ioku decided that this was best in order to get the rights in some way and then talk to Toei and they figured this out. I know there's a bunch of stuff going on behind the scenes. I don't know if everything has been sorted out. Hopefully it has, after Toriyama's passing and all that. Apparently some stuff was in the air. Anyway, maybe there's something like that where it's more beneficial to the interests of, Capsule Corporation, Akio Ioku, to fund or to spearhead a remake. I don't know. Rather than just, sticking to the original Dragon Ball Super. Speculation. I don't know. There could be something there. Another benefit of remaking Dragon Ball Super is that they could create what would be the definitive version of Dragon Ball Super. Because remember, we have no version that is complete. We have the manga, we have the movies, we have the anime. None of these are complete. There are portions missing in each, and there are inconsistencies across all of them. And, well, there is no canon. There is 100% no canon in Dragon Ball at this point in time. The only canon is the original manga. But there is no canon according to Toei, according to the people involved. They have not come out and said that this is what is the canon, right? They just say, oh, Dragon Ball Super is a continuation of Z. They just say Dragon Ball Daima is a continuation of Z. But they don't tell you this is what you should consume in order to get the full story. They just keep it vague because, well, my suspicion is that they don't want to... there's money. There's a lot of money at stake here, right? So, for example, if they say that the manga is the definitive edition, well, that legitimizes the anime in some way, the movies in some way, when in reality... they all have some stake to legitimacy, but in reality, we're going an extra layer deep here. It all goes back to what Toriyama wrote, and he, for the most part, only wrote bullet points, story points. He didn't flesh things out much. There's a famous anecdote that Torishima told in an interview. When they were making Resurrection F, Toriyama just gave them a list. He says, and then the characters fight the Frieza soldiers. And then it was up to them, the people who were working on this and the movie at the time, right? To figure out, okay, well, what's the fight going to be? Who's going to fight who? Who's going to win? How are they going to win? How are they going to lose? How are they going to fight? Like, that's the kind of general notes that Toriyama was leaving in a lot of cases. Yes, there were some specific cases where he worked more on the script. Dragon Ball Z Battle of Gods, like, he was very involved with that. He essentially wrote the script. There's a lot more involvement there. Yeah. But a lot of Super wasn't like that. So this, if this is true, right? And they remake Dragon Ball Super as an anime. Well, this could be the perfect opportunity to create a definitive edition. This is the version that you should watch. This is the version that ties into Dragon Ball Daima, because we know there's multiple inconsistencies with Dragon Ball Daima. Yeah, just because there's inconsistencies does not mean that Daima does not connect with Super. However, right now it's ambiguous as hell. Well, it's ambiguous at best, if not, they just don't mesh, right? So this could be a way to tie everything together. That being said, again, it's a lot of money to invest into this. And so, I don't know, is that really the only reason, right? Like, just to tie continuity together and all that? Like, and again, I don't think that they are going to say this is canon. They might imply that this is the version that you should watch in some way, but I think that there's too much money involved. There's too many interests involved to completely be able to say, oh, you know, the manga doesn't count anymore, or this doesn't count anymore. They're probably not going to come out and say that. And so then I have to ask myself, okay, so let's say that, yeah, this is a way to clean it up. This is a way to provide a kind of definitive edition. It's a way to fix animation, even though I don't think that's such a big deal, as long as the story is good and the Dragon Ball Super is not, story is not particularly amazing. So anyway, it's a way to fix the animation. Okay, sorry, I'm going all over the place. Those are all reasons, but that to me is still not the best reason. Now, aside from the financial interest that we don't know about, right? Something related to that whole merchandising thing, and maybe there's something like that going on. Aside from that, because that's even more speculative, maybe this comes down to a way of funneling the new audience that experienced Dragon Ball for the first time through Daima into Dragon Ball Super. And so to explain what I mean, I want to talk about Dragon Ball Kai for a moment. So this is basically what happened with Dragon Ball Kai. That was a funnel that led people into Dragon Ball Super. So that brought people into the fandom. That brought in children. Because remember, the Dragon Ball fandom is up there in age. This is not a new IP. We're celebrating the 40th anniversary of Dragon Ball. There are people who are 50, 60 who watched Dragon Ball, who read Dragon Ball when it was first coming out. Now, they are up there in age. You have to bring in new people into the fandom in order to keep the fandom going, in order to keep the franchise going. Dragon Ball Kai did that. It brought in a whole new generation. And so those people are what, like 20-somethings, 30-somethings, maybe 20s, I guess, if you grew up like watching Kai as a little kid. And so then those are the people that then ended up watching Super, aside from the old generation. And so that's perfect. That all worked out, right? That was the base that led into Super and all the new content. So Daima, according to what Akio Ioku has kind of said, right? Like, they wanted to set up Daima as something that parents could watch with their children. And he said in an interview that I talked about months ago, I think, that they were doing quite well with the streaming rankings with children, something like that. And so, yeah, obviously, little kid designs and a new jumping off point for the story. That episode 1 with the whole recap of Dragon Ball and all that. Like, this was a product to bring in children into the fandom so that it's not just a bunch of grandpas complaining about, oh, they changed Broly or something, right? This was a way to bring in a new fandom. Now, was Daima a success? Well, the other day in that stream that Geekdom did, he said, Dragon Ball Daima was a success. Yes, I think it was a success to some degree, but also it definitely was not the success that probably Toei and everybody involved wanted it to be. Yeah, reception was very much mixed. Merch is not selling that well, generally speaking. People are not clamoring for a season 2 or a movie of Daima. I've talked about this many times. Like, yeah, I don't think Daima was that much of a success. And I'm talking about Japan and the rest of the world. I do not agree that it was a success in the definitive, very assertive tone that Geekdom put out the other day. Yeah, it was, fun, whatever. But I think the vast majority of the fandom was kind of like, it's all right. Kind of like me. Like, I enjoyed it, but it was also rather frustrating and kind of like, whatever at the end of the day. So that being said, it did, I'm sure, bring in some new people into the fandom. It's a good jumping on point for the fandom because you don't have to watch 300, 400 episodes of anime and all that stuff. You can just start with Daima. So then maybe if this is true and they decide to remake Super, well, they'll be able to use that the same way that they used Super before, right? This will be the continuation of Daima. Before, this was a continuation of Kai. What I mean is that Kai brought in people, Daima brought in people, and now they have the next thing that they can watch. So this will be, modern animation, even though when Super came out, it wasn't like, the old days. That was pretty modern animation. It's just that they rushed it. And so they got a horrible, product in many places. Anyway, better animation, maybe, hopefully Daima quality animation, and something that ties in with Daima, so they get rid of some of those contradictions, and then that leads everybody, the new people, the oldies, the people in between, the casual fans, the hardcore fans, that leads them into the new stuff, Moro and Granola and the Black Frieza stuff, all that stuff, and whatever else is to come on top of that. That gives Toyotaro and Shueisha time to continue the manga so that they're not so rushed again. This makes sense to me, and it makes sense from the perspective of Akio Ioku. Like, he's trying to foster the new generation of Dragon Ball fans. He's basically talked about this. He's talked about how he wants Dragon Ball to continue for 50 years, from here. And so if you want to do that, then you have to foster the new fandom. You can't keep catering to the oldies. However, he does keep catering to the oldies because he keeps bringing back stuff from the movies instead of moving us forward. Well, he, Toei, the people involved, he's not, single-handedly doing everything. However, for example, Gohan Beast, he's responsible for that. He told Toriyama, right, do that. He said that in an interview or something. I don't remember the exact quote, but basically, yeah, he's like, oh, we need another form for Gohan. And so then Toriyama had to come up with that. That wasn't in the original script, apparently. So he's very much been influential throughout this entire time that he's been deeply involved with Dragon Ball, heading Capital Corporation. Anyway, from his perspective, right, this makes sense, right? And so I would not be surprised if one of the big announcements for these new developments, the future of Dragon Ball, whatever, that's going to be announced at Genkidamatsuri, is a Dragon Ball Super remake. Now, would I be happy about this? No, but it depends, right? If they make it clear that they actually want to, for example, throw in a little extra content with Daima and kind of tie that story up in a better way, maybe throw in one more fight at the end. I don't know. If they're doing this in a way that offers new content and fixes some of the problems that are rampant throughout Super, I guess I'd be, I'm going to watch it either way. I'll just, enjoy it more if they actually put some passion into this. Because here's the thing about Super, right? Now, I'm not the only one that's brought this up, but Super feels like a sitcom that never goes anywhere. It feels like an old TV show where the status quo never changes because it's stuck in this in-between period between the end of the Buu saga and the end of Dragon Ball Z. They can't do anything, right? They can't kill off Vegeta or something like that. They can't do anything big because we know where everybody is at the end of Z. Now, are they going to completely erase that and rewrite the ending? I think that would be a horrible decision. It would be disrespectful. Dragon Ball Z is what it is. And if you want to, or by you, I mean Akio Ioku and the people involved, right? If they want to do a completely new thing, okay, fine, but then you can't say that ties in with Z. You are rewriting Z. It wouldn't make sense. And it already doesn't make much sense. You can kind of shut your eyes and kind of say, oh, I guess it makes sense. But they're really pushing the limits on that time gap there. The whatever it's called, the in between, the end of Buu and the the time skip, right? And the end of Z. Yeah. Like, why haven't they aged up the characters for so long, right? Like Goten and Trunks, like they finally did the new designs in the last movie. What is it, Super Hero, right? They don't want to change the status quo too much because they're in that golden age. Like, why does Vegeta keep going to the Cell Saga armor? Because that is become the default look of Vegeta. That is the stuff that moves merch. That is the marketing approach, right? That is thinking about what's going to sell rather than what's going to push the story forward, because they can't push the story forward. Sorry, I'm going into a rant about Super, but that's the problem with Super. We all, well, I don't know about all, but a lot of people want the story to move forward. What is it about Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z that so many of us like so much? Well, one of the big things is that things changed, right? Goku went from a little kid who didn't know about his background. He learns about his background. You know, his friends die. He brings them back. Like, he becomes an adult. He actually grows up. He doesn't stay a little kid for the entire run of Dragon Ball. Like, this was something that Toriyama felt very strongly about. He said, I'm going to do this even though Torishima did not want him to do this. They were very nervous about this. This is not something that you normally do, especially at the time, but he did it. He decided to do it, and it was a good decision, and the status quo changed, right? Oh, Bulma and Yamcha, they broke up. The status quo changed. Goku dies. The status quo changed. Piccolo becomes good. The status quo changed. Goku dies. He decides not to come back. The status quo changed. It goes on and on and on. Like, Toriyama was always thinking about, even if he was like, he didn't want to do it, right? He wanted to take a break. He wanted to end this here and there, whatever. He considered this multiple times. You know, it went through his mind, right? He was very, very tired. He was physically like at his limit so many times, but he always, when he, you know, kept going with this, he always decided, okay, what am I going to do here to keep this interesting? Probably for himself, but also for the readers, right? Even though he was tired, he was physically like suffering, he was always thinking about, okay, what am I going to do here to subvert expectations? How am I going to change the status quo? How am I going to, you know, provide a satisfying ending? And Super, with some exceptions here and there, hasn't really done that, right? It's been really frustrating because, and now I can't even pronounce my syllables correctly. It's been really frustrating because, you know, there's been some nice moments here or there, but so much of it feels like a rehash because it is, you know, remaking the movies and then, you know, bringing back these characters here and there. Again, there's been some highlights here and there, but, you know, we got Goku Ultra Instinct. That's cool, but I don't think it was executed that well. So, like, yeah, and then we got Black Frieza, right? Okay, so that's going to go. What's going to go on there, right? Like, I'm curious. I want to know. I want to see it. But to be perfectly honest, I'm not particularly optimistic. Because we've got the Z ending coming. Like, is this going to somehow lead to a time skip? Is that going to lead to going back to the demon realm in some way? Like, I don't know. Like, do something that you see, this is all like really frustrating for me because I want to like the new stuff. And again, I like some aspects of it, but I'm just really dreading having to watch a Dragon Ball Super remake that is not good. And just the fact that it's a remake of a somewhat mediocre product throughout much of its run. Like, I don't know. And then, of course, this is only going to complicate the whole canon thing. And again, there's no canon in modern Dragon Ball. It's all nonsense. It's all contradictory. It's all like, that's a problem. That's a huge problem, but I don't see them fixing it. But again, the fact that they're going to be announcing something during the portion of this event with Masako Nozawa, to me, really suggests that it's going to be some kind of animated project. At the same time, though, I'm very nervous about another aspect that's some people might not want to talk about, but Masako Nozawa, right? She's what, like 88, I believe, 87, 88. If they decide to remake Dragon Ball Super, if that's the announcement, what's that going to take? Like 2 years plus the new stuff? What, 3 years? she's going to be like 91, 92, 93 at the end of that. Like, is that a good idea? I don't think it's a good idea. I love Masako Nozawa. She made Goku who he is. I look, if you want to complain about Masako Nozawa, fine, leave me some comments. Thank you for the engagement. But she is a legend. She is part of the reason why Goku is the way he is and why he sounds the way he does. And she helped popularize Dragon Ball. Okay. She deserves to be the voice of Dragon Ball the voice of Goku for as long as she can do it. But at the same time, right? Like, as long as she can do it, can she keep doing this for 4 more years, 5 more years, and still keep producing the same like quality of content? Like, honestly, and this is coming from somebody that does not want this to happen. I think the responsible decision for everybody involved is to announce that Masako Nozawa is stepping away from the role and that they're going to be bringing on a new cast for this remake of Super, and that will be the cast that they will eventually, maybe not anytime soon, maybe for the 50th anniversary, that they will eventually use this cast to remake all of Dragon Ball. Because that is coming at some point. That is absolutely coming at some point, but I don't think it's coming soon. It'll take some years still. They're not going to blow their load so quickly, so to speak. They're saving that. So, but by that point, what? Masako Nozawa is going to be like 97 or something. Like, I don't think it's a good decision to go with her, but who knows? Maybe they're still going to, like, it would be, I don't know. I just don't know. Like, what is more respectful? To announce that Masako Nozawa is retiring just in a tweet, in a press release on the Dragon Ball official website, or to do it at this big event, to shine a spotlight on her, to praise her, to give her flowers literally and figuratively, and then say, you know, she would say it. I think that would be the most respectful way to do it. She said, you know, I'm going to step away from the role, and this is my successor. And this successor is going to be the voice in the upcoming projects. I think that would be the classiest, the nicest, the best way to do this. And a rather Japanese way to do this, I think, as well. Respectful, right? With her involved. Because like we saw with the Dragon Ball Daima uproar that happened after episode 2 aired, people in Japan complained, like, why did you get rid of the old voice cast? And me too. Like, I complained about that. I did not like that because the voices were off and they're not the same. And I want the old voices. They're good. They're still good. They were still good at that time, but they're all getting older and older and older, right? So that's not going to be the case anymore. Like, Vegeta's voice has changed. Like, Ryo Horikawa, he's getting there, right? Like, he's still totally like lucid. Like, he's doing videos. He has his own YouTube channel. He's an amazing guy. Totally, like, you know, energetic and great. But his voice, the quality of his voice has changed. You can hear it very clearly when he's doing the Vegeta voice, when he's doing when he's just speaking regularly. So that's only going to continue. So maybe that might happen. I don't know. I haven't heard this from anybody at all. Like, I'm just thinking logically, like, here, why are they going to have Masako Nozawa on stage when they announce a new project? You know, like, it makes me think, right? Like, what's the connection there aside from she's the one that does the voice for Goku? Maybe some kind of retirement thing? Like, I don't know, right? I just don't know. But if they decide that, well, if she announces that, then the benefit of remaking Super is that now you have this new voice cast. And then when they decide to remake all of Dragon Ball, they can use that new voice cast, right? In 5 years or in 10 years for the 50th anniversary. I think that would be the perfect timing, although that means we're going to have to wait 10 years for that. You know, anyway, that would be the continuity, right? Because what if they use Masako Nozawa here in this Dragon Ball Super remake, and hopefully nothing happens to her, but they finish it 3-4 years and she still sounds good? Well, then when they remake Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z, now there's a pretty good chance that Masako Nozawa is not going to be the voice of Goku, and there's going to be a little bit of an inconsistency. Now, of course, they're going to cast somebody that's going to do a Masako Nozawa impression. They're not going to totally change Goku's voice when that happens. They're not going to go with, oh, no, Goku should be a man, and like all these, American Dragon Ball fans that can't stand, oh, granny voice, they come at me in the comments, right? We're not going to do that. No, that's not going to happen. Goku will always sound like that. It's just that they're going to hire somebody else who can do a Masako Nozawa impression. But nevertheless, just like with Hiromitsuru, when she passed away, they had to hire somebody else to do the voice of Bulma. You can hear the difference. Yeah, it sounds similar, but if you go back and listen to the, first run, the Dragon Ball, Dragon Ball Z, all the movies, everything, all that stuff, you can hear a difference between Bulma then, Bulma now. It's just inevitable. There's always going to be like a tiny difference. Like even when they recast like Mickey and all those classic characters, sometimes it's hard to hear the difference, but if you're used to it, you can usually hear at least a slight difference. So, but it is what it is. That's just going to happen. Anyway, I don't even know what to hope at this point. I don't want it to be a continuation of Daima. I would be totally good, okay, maybe even happy if they implement Daima into a remake of Super. At the same time, though, I can't say that I want it to be a remake of Super. And at the same time, I also don't really... I don't know if I just want to be a continuation of Super, like just jumping on from like a remake of the Broly movie and Superhero and then into the new stuff, like the manga-only stuff. Because I don't think that would be a good jumping on point for new audiences. And then I think they'd skimp out on that potentially. Like they wouldn't give it as much attention because it would just be again a remake. But then I just don't know. I'm going all over the place because I think this all comes down to Toei and Akio Yoko, all these people that are pulling the strings. They screwed themselves over on this, right? Like they didn't handle Super well the first time around. And so now we're stuck in this situation. It's a mess. It's an absolute mess. Multiple continuities, and we don't know what is the truth, the real timeline. Like it's just an absolute mess. And that is completely on them. And that is why, it's so complicated for me to give an opinion here because I just don't know. I just don't know. And it doesn't matter what I think. Whatever's going to happen is happening. It's already been decided. And like I said earlier, I'm going to watch it, whatever it is. And if it's good, I'll praise it. And when and if it's bad, I will criticize it because that's what we do, right? Like, even if I like something, I will criticize it if it should be criticized. And if I like something or I dislike something, I'll praise it when there's moments that it should be praised. I'll be here talking about it. So I don't know. Let me know what you think. If I raised any points that you hadn't thought about, I'd love to hear them. Let me know down below in the comments. I am so freaking curious about this. But, we still got like almost a month, I think, left until the event. But the good thing is it's going to be live stream. So I may try to check it out and maybe I'll do a recap video or something after the live stream is done. We'll see. I don't know. It depends on how busy I am and all that. But I'll probably be watching the live stream. But it'll probably be like, I don't know, some weird time for me. Unless if it's in the daytime. Yeah, you know what? It's probably in the daytime because, yeah, these kind of events are usually in the daytime. So it won't be some crazy time for me here in Hawaii. Like it'll probably be the middle of the day or the afternoon for me. So that'll work out. Anyway, I'll try and watch the live stream and maybe do a video about it. We'll see. But yeah, let me know what you think. This is such a messy video, but it's such a messy topic. And yeah, so I'd love to know what you guys think. What do you want? Do you want it to be a remake of Dragon Ball Super? Or do you want them to just skip like all the stuff that we already got and just continue the story, the stuff that hasn't been turned into the anime? Or do you want something else? Do you want like some side story? I don't think... If it doesn't have Goku, we are not getting it. So don't even waste your breath, okay? Don't even waste your time with that. If it does not have Goku and maybe Vegeta, we're not getting it. Dragon Ball Superhero was a rare exception. Like, I don't think we're getting anything like that anytime soon again. But you never know, I guess. It could surprise us, but I don't think so. The money is in Goku and Vegeta. Okay, mainly Goku, but also Vegeta. That's where the money is. And they have shown that they are chasing the money. That is the priority. They're trying to create a minimally viable product that will sell merch. They are not spending the time to create a maximally satisfying product that will sell merch. So, because that is harder. That is harder. It's easier to just bring back Broly. Okay, so, anyway, sorry. That's it. Let me know what you think. And probably next time it'll be a proper scripted video, but we'll see. Anyway, see you next time.